You've been waiting. The anticipation has been building. You've been setting your lineups for 16 consecutive weeks. All for what? For this moment. For this time. This is where you win. This is where it all comes together. And we are here to make sure that you get it done. Welcome in, everybody. It's the Week 16 Championship edition of Wake and Rake. My name is Ben Heisler. I'm so glad you guys are with us for this final edition. Justin Fensterman, the outstanding mind over at Fantasy Alarm and SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio, the host of the late night, midnight to 2 a.m. It just got expanded because it's so good. Wager Alarm, Fantasy Alarm at night. I just blanked out on the name because I'm too amped up. Alarm After Hours, whatever it is. All I know is that it's the Fensty Hour. It's Fensty and Friends. I apologize for screwing up your beautiful show, which I listen to, which I enjoy. Tell the people where they can find you before I just go ahead and bury my head in shame.
Well, Ben, clearly that's bull crap on a chef salad right there. Because Alarm After Hours.
Alarm After Hours. That's what it is.
In one of your 50 names, Ben, you got it right. So we'll give you partial credit. Okay. Alarm After Hours, Monday through Friday, right now, midnight to 1 a.m. Eastern, going to expand to 2 a.m. Eastern once the new year hits.
There you go. Yeah, it's on its way.
It's on its way, Ben. It's on its way. You crack me up, sir.
I'm glad you're here because there's a ton of shit going down today that we need to address. We already have a lot of Twitter questions coming in. I see we got some people coming in on Facebook Live, on Twitter Live, on Periscope, on YouTube Live. We're with you guys until the bottom of the hour. So your questions, we are here to help you answer them, especially with Championship Week on the line. If you're out of your fantasy league or if you're playing for, the toilet bowl, you're in the cellar, that's okay. There's still daily on the option for you guys as well. We're going to go through all the different matchups. We're going to break through a lot of the injury news. There's a lot of backup running backs that could potentially help you win your league today. And in Fensty, I think that's probably the good place to start, especially dealing with some news coming out today. We knew about Dalvin Cook at the beginning of the week that he was going to be out. We also knew that Alexander Madison was probably not going to be a possibility as well. We knew about Josh Jacobs being out. So I think fantasy owners adjusted and got themselves taken care of. They have DeAndre Washington. They have Mike Boone ready and available to go. But now we hear news that Derrick Henry likely out for today for Tennessee. And Tennessee's got a really tough matchup today against the New Orleans Saints. Now, they are at home. And that's a big opportunity for them, considering you get the Saints, the red-hot Saints, out of New Orleans. The question is, should Derrick Henry be ruled out? Dion Lewis is sitting on your waiver wire, and you need a running back today. Fensty, against the Saints defense, do you trust Dion Lewis to get the job done today?
Not fully, but again, this is a situation, Ben, where you might not have that depth when it comes to running backs. And there's a guy right now that is going to get some carries. Now, has he officially been ruled out, Derrick Henry? No, but it's really looking bad when all of a sudden you're downgraded on Saturday before a Sunday game. Not good. Practice squad people coming up, not good also. So, Ben, yes, you can pick up Dion Lewis, but you can't expect the world of him. That's the thing, Ben. Again, you're expecting him to get carries, but it's a big risk still.
So Dion Lewis, just to get a little bit of perspective for those of you that are playing, the last 2 weeks, he has played 24 out of 67 snaps. 24 out of 62 snaps the week before. He has rushed no more than 9 times. He has rushed no more than 26 yards. And one time this year has he gone more than 4 receptions in a game. He has been targeted 5 times twice in the passing game. So what we thought initially for Dion Lewis was that this was going to be an actual option in the passing game. He was the first half of last year. Now, if Derrick Henry is out, do you think that they will try to incorporate him more into the passing game? Because that's always been his bread and butter. That's always where he helped guys like Tom Brady in the Patriots run for championships. Like, if you're looking at Dion Lewis, are you looking at him in the same type of role that Derrick Henry would have, where he would get the ball 20 to 25 times a game? Or do you think this is Ryan Tannehill saying, all right, now at least I have a dump-off option because Derrick Henry wasn't going to catch a ton of passes for me?
I mean, you could look a little bit of both, Ben. I mean, going into the season, I thought, because I didn't really love the Titans receiving core going into the year, and actually our deep league, Ben, I actually put a bid on Dion Lewis thinking that he would have standalone value in that passing game. And that hasn't been the case for the most part, Ben.
Right.
And you know what? This is one of those situations where with A.J. Brown, he's going to be covered like crazy today. He's
Yeah.
going to need that dump off option. If all of you Ryan Tannehill owners and you're starting him with everything on the line, you are praying to God that Ryan Tannehill uses Deion Lewis in that type of dump-off role. We're so used to seeing it from his days in New England. And, Ben, that's why I felt so stupid keeping him on my bench week after week after week, thinking that eventually he'll have some standalone value. And then, of course, I drop him. And now I'm not in the finals in that league. But now, all of a sudden, championship week, opportunity arises.
Yeah, and guys are going to take advantage of those opportunities. You just have to make sure that you are on the right guy. Already seeing some questions come in. We'll get to some of your Twitter questions as well. Before we start taking these questions, Fensty, when you're looking at a lot of the matchups today, a few that certainly came to mind, certainly Tennessee and New Orleans is one of those really intriguing matchups where I think you're going to see some points on both sides, even though the Saints defense has been electric the last couple of weeks. But they are away from the Superdome, and I think that gives Tennessee a little bit more opportunity to feel good about themselves coming into this game. Ryan Tannehill's had a terrific season since he's coming in week 7, been the number 3 fantasy quarterback after Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. What are the matchups today that you say to yourself, if I'm playing daily, these are the matchups that I have to make sure that I target and at least know that there's an opportunity for a game stack? Because one front and center, I don't care how chalk it is, you need to have exposure to Arizona and Seattle today. The total, I think, in that game is around 51. I think that might be too low based on the amount of plays that Arizona runs, based on the matchup for both of these quarterbacks in this game. There's going to be points left and right in this game, and I don't think either of these defenses can stop either one of these teams.
No, and it's going to be a smash spot for everyone when it comes to guys like Hollister, when it comes to DK Metcalf and Lockett on the Seattle side. But on the Arizona side, it's been interesting, Ben, when it's come to Kyler Murray, because a lot of people putting trust in Kyler Murray. And I've had to make decisions in my championship lineup about Larry Fitzgerald. Christian Kirk should be able to be active in this game today, so don't forget about that. So there's that option to worry about as well if you're a Fitz owner and you're looking for desperation. So that's something, Ben, that I've been struggling with. But you're right, especially from the Seattle side. Let's talk about these 4 o'clock games for a second, because another game that I really like that I don't think is really being talked about as much, you mentioned DeAndre Washington, Raiders-Chargers.
Yeah.
I feel like I have to put Mike Williams in every single daily lineup I have.
Mike Williams is a really intriguing play. And I think especially with the matchup against Oakland, it's going to set up very well. There's one guy on the Chargers that I want to have some exposure to in daily this week, because I feel like there's going to – and yes, I'm walking down Narrative Street. I'm putting my Mr. Rogers sweater on and taking a stroll. I want Austin Eckler to be my neighbor today, Fensty. I think that whole team is pissed. No, I mean it. I think they are pissed that Austin Eckler got snubbed to the Pro Bowl. It's kind of why I kind of like Allen Robinson for the Bears tonight, even though Kansas City has been one of the best teams in stopping outside wide receivers all year long. I think players and teams care when they feel like a teammate that they really like and respect gets snubbed for the Pro Bowl, which is such an antiquated process to begin with. But Austin Eckler has had a remarkable year. Austin Eckler, without Melvin Gordon next year, is a legitimate first-round running back pick in fantasy leagues. And I don't think a lot of people... you want to talk about this for a second? Think about the volume whenever he has produced in that lead back role. He's incredibly athletic. He's versatile. He'll catch a ton of passes. He's kind of like David Johnson Light from a couple of years ago. He just hasn't had enough volume and opportunity to showcase that on a consistent enough level. I think he's a fantastic running back.
Yeah, and let me just tell you this, Ben, because I'm getting a lot of eyebrow looks and stuff like that, like this, because Ben, people are like, wait a minute, you're cool with starting both Melvin Gordon and Eckler? Yes, I am.
Today, without question.
Of course I am. Why wouldn't I be at this point? Why wouldn't I handcuff my starting lineup just like I would handcuff my running backs? Ben, I had a big decision to make in my keeper league going into the year. Melvin Gordon was holding out at the time. I saw what was going on with Zeke, and I said, no way Melvin Gordon's getting the same kind of love. I still decided to keep him as a 4th-round keeper. First round after keepers, Austin Eckler. Yesterday, Ben, we did a whole show on appreciation. What players do you have the most appreciation for based off where you draft them? Ben, the number 1 response, Austin Eckler.
Yeah. He was one of those guys, too, coming into this year. We were just going in the 6th, 7th, 8th round, and I still thought that was a little bit too high because you knew that he could produce last year. And he's done it again this year in limited volume, limited opportunity. He's had a couple bad games this year. that I put more on the coaching staff than I do on Austin Eckler. So we'll go through more of these different matchups today. I certainly think Cincinnati and Miami is another game that I'm going to have my eye on. Jacksonville and Atlanta is another really intriguing matchup. Maybe Jacksonville without Tom Coughlin, the comeback win from last week. Maybe they play a little bit more inspired this week. Vegas doesn't seem to think so. They think this is going to be a shootout with a total going up almost 2 points from 45 to 47. So we're going to get through all of this today. But Fensty, we got a lot.
Ben, I just saw it at 47.5, and now DJ Chark is expected to play in this game.
So there you go. So a lot more information coming in. We'll get to some of the line movement as well. If any of you guys want to follow some of my best bets that I put out there on KCTV5 on the CBS affiliate in Kansas City, we can go through some of those as well. Whatever you guys have questions about today, we are here for you. But let's get things going, Fensty, with one of our favorites, our buddy Seth. He has been a frequent follower and listener of this show, so Seth comes right from the very beginning. He says, guys, good to see you. 2 questions. Thanks for your help this week in the championship. Adam Schefter says Alexander Madison unlikely to play tomorrow. Who do I play in a half-point PPR between DeAndre Washington against the Chargers or Mike Boone against the Packers? Fensty, I think we kind of know. Here's the thing about DeAndre Washington. I like him better in daily than I do in a season-long league. I think from a daily perspective, you're just taking the volume, you're taking the price point, and you're saying, I plug this guy in cash lineups because he allows me to spend elsewhere to get better value. But Mike Boone has a really good matchup, and I know that the Bears did not look good against the Packers last week. They couldn't get the run going. That was a coaching issue and not necessarily a Bears issue. I think the Vikings know as well as anybody in the league on how to run effectively, how to open up play action, and Mike Boone is a similar build to Dalvin Cook and Alexander Madison. I think he's a fantastic play, so I'd probably go with him.
Yeah, Ben, with regards to Mike Boone, I mean, yes, we saw just one game, but at the same time, I've never seen the hype bigger on a guy just after 1 week than Mike Boone. Like, people are like, no, this isn't just a rando that just took advantage of the match. No, this is a guy that's very athletic, and they're going to put a lot on him. I mean, everybody is saying it, even on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio, everyone's saying if you have Mike Boone, you're starting him at this point. So, Ben, when it comes to Mike Boone here, there's not going to be too many running backs outside of your normal chalky guys that are going to be starting over Mike Boone, at least in my opinion.
He was a great player in the preseason, and again, you can take that with a grain of salt. But you're right, the athleticism for him is off the charts, and it was pretty remarkable considering that he was undrafted, considering the type of athletic scores that he was putting up at the combine. It was pretty surprising to see him not get drafted, but he's taking advantage of an opportunity. And the other thing too, Fensty, is that the system fits for him. It fit for Dalvin Cook, it fit for Alexander Madison, it fit for Mike Boone. So the Vikings aren't going to have to change up much. They're not going to have to adjust their game plan because Mike Boone is out there.
Well, Ben, and we should talk about this because I've been getting some questions regarding Mike Boone ors, and I just want to say, again, you don't want to go too crazy because, Ben, I'm getting a lot of Saquon Barkley versus Mike Boone questions.
No, especially with Barkley showing that he was healthy last week. The Giants have Washington. I actually like the matchup quite a bit for Washington today, which is crazy to think that we've seen a ton of reverse line movement in this game. Washington opened up this game at -2.5. They're now 1 point underdogs at home. I'm surprised that the line has moved this much. I still like Washington in this game. I kind of wish that I would have just waited to bet them and gotten them as underdogs. But a lot of people right now feel very good about the Giants taking a step in the right direction in Week 16.
Right. Also, another guy. I've been getting a lot of Leonard Fournette or Mike Boone. That's a little bit of a tougher one, but I'm still going Fournette there because I love attacking Atlanta so much.
But you should attack Atlanta, and Fournette continues to just get ungodly amounts of volume, and he's still on the wrong side of touchdown equity. At some point, we were hoping for that to come. It will come at some point. But Leonard Fournette could get 3 touchdowns today against Atlanta, and I wouldn't blink twice.
Right. So, again, we don't want to go too crazy.
Right.
But, again, outside of some of those top guys that I just mentioned, those early draft picks, again, you're going to be starting Mike Boone over a lot of these guys.
No doubt. One more from Seth, half-point PPR at the tight end spot today. Does he go with Hunter Henry against the Raiders or Austin Hooper against Jacksonville? You're talking about two teams that have been gashed in the middle of the field, Fensty. It's just a question of whether or not you think one is going to see more targets in the passing game, which is likely going to be Hunter Henry, or who's going to have the better touchdown equity in Austin Hooper. So where do you go between those two?
I am actually in this game, man, attacking Jacksonville. I'm going to give the edge to Austin Hooper. I think it's a good spot for both. But again, with no Calvin Ridley there, I'm thinking a healthy Hooper. I think he's going to be targeted a lot.
Yeah, Seth, I think that's the play as well. Back-to-back 6-target games for Austin Hooper. Has yet to get back into the end zone since returning. I would imagine this is the week that he's able to do so. He's been so good in the first half. Matt Ryan, I do think, is going to have to throw a bunch. Although, Devontae Freeman's got a fantastic matchup. Jacksonville really has had all sorts of issues, Fensty, all year at stopping the run, especially after they traded Jalen Ramsey. Now, they were better last week against the Raiders. Especially after the Raiders got off to that lead and then they came back and won. They really shut them down in the second half. But I think Atlanta is talented enough to be able to run on them, especially at home. Falcons, I believe, are 6.5 or 7-point favorites against Jacksonville. So this might be a nice Devontae Freeman game where not a lot of people may be on him this week because he hasn't really impressed anybody all year.
Half point PPR, Devonta Freeman or Mike Boone. This is going to be a big theme throughout the show.
I think I would go Freeman.
Okay. I'm very, very close. I really want to go Mike Boone over Freeman again. I do.
Jacksonville's been so bad against the run.
I know, and they don't have Miles Jack anymore, and they're going to be completely open, but that's a tough decision.
Yeah, Mike Boone is making things interesting, which is not something that I would have anticipated saying today, but sure enough,
right.
The Booney effect fully in play. Guess who's checking in? Your guy, PD Dubs. PD checks in on YouTube Live. He goes, Ryan Tannehill or Dak Prescott, championship week, let's go. So, from a matchup perspective, Fensty, there's no doubt that Dak Prescott is the better matchup. The question is whether or not you believe his shoulder is healthy enough to be able to have sustained success in a tough environment in Philadelphia with the NFC East on the line. Versus Ryan Tannehill, he's at home, going up against the Saints, who after Marshawn Lattimore, you can attack their secondary, but their front seven, Fensty, is nasty. I know Tennessee's offensive line has been fairly good this year. They've kept Ryan Tannehill upright. And from an upside perspective, especially if this game turns into a shootout, Ryan Tannehill might be the better upside play. But if Dak Prescott's good to go, I think you have to start him here against Philadelphia secondary. They've been so bad, so miserable all year. Even when the stakes are at its highest, Fensty, I don't know if Dak Prescott would be the guy that I'd go away from between him and Ryan Tannehill this week.
I wouldn't either. I wouldn't, again, because you could crush Philly's secondary, like you said. But here's the one thing I worry about, Ben. In most situations where you have blowouts and let's just say that they're up 2 touchdowns instead of 3. Like normally I'd say if you're up 3 or 4 touchdowns, you're just going to run it the rest of the game. However, in this situation, to preserve Dak's health, I wonder if they get a little 2-touchdown cushion if it's going to be Zeke all the way. That's my one minor fear about that with the shoulder.
So you brought up an interesting point, and that's the Ezekiel Elliott effect. And they blew out the Rams last week with Dak Prescott really not doing much. Zeke Elliott was the star of last week's game. 24 rushing attempts, 117 yards, 2 touchdowns, was targeted 4 times in the receiving game as well. They could just run Zeke. And again, it's not the ideal way to beat the Eagles, but if it puts pressure off of Dak, and again, kind of like Kirk Cousins, Fensty, Dak's been one of the better quarterbacks off of play action this year. So if you use Zeke to set up play action, and Amari Cooper and Michael Gallup can just burn those Eagles corners, maybe it's an opportunity where Dak maybe throws the ball 20-something times. He's efficient. Maybe throws for 200-something yards and a couple touchdowns. That's good, but maybe the upside play with Ryan Tannehill, knowing that he's going to have to throw against the Saints, knowing that Derrick Henry is not going to be that safety blanket for him. I think it's one of those situations where either Tannehill throws for 300-something yards and a couple touchdowns because he's playing catch-up all day, or he just has a Jameis Winston type of performance where he's chucking it all around but turns the ball over a bunch. Like, that's the risk that you take with Ryan Tannehill today.
So that's the deal then with the answer from Petey. Then it's if you want the safe floor, you're going to go Dak. But if you're chasing points, and again, don't only focus on the projections that you see on whatever site you play on. Also focus on the matchup itself. By now, you've made it this far.
Right.
Look at your opponent's squad, and you'll know. You'll know. You could be unbiased and know if you're going to be a true underdog or not. And if you are, then you're going with a Tannehill type of play.
Right, exactly. You've already seen a few games play out. If you need to chase the points, again, it's championship week. You can go big or go home. And again, if you feel like you have a comfortable lead, and you feel like you can go ahead and play the safer option, you can weigh your matchups. Guys, this is also a really important thing. And I feel like most fantasy players know this, but for those of you that just feel like, all right, I've set my lineup, that's it, I can't move guys around. Just like in daily, if you want to pivot off of your flex in the afternoon slate, you can do that when it comes to your fantasy team for the championship as well. If you're looking at your team and you're saying, oh man, oh God, I'm going up against Lamar Jackson. He just went for 40 points. I'm screwed. Man, go find some upside guys. Like, go pick up like a John Ross or something. I guess he's playing in one of the early games. But look at the late afternoon slate, see who's available, and say, all right, if I need to chase points, let's go with the guy that could get 2 big touchdowns today. And maybe it plays out, maybe it doesn't, but at least you know that you can adjust on the fly. Just because your lineup is set by the time kickoff start doesn't mean that the late game guys are not out of the question, which is why I always recommend keep that flex spot open if you can. If it's already locked up, that's too bad, but keep it open because it gives you the most versatility to make a change if you need to. Our buddy Corey from Winnipeg checks in. He says, hey boys, happy holidays. Do I go with Drew Brees or Russell Wilson today at the quarterback spot? Drew Brees on the... Oh, by the way, he also says that it's time for you to get a Winnipeg Jets jersey and to retire your Mighty Ducks jersey.
Oh, we're not answering his question now. Next.
But Drew Brees, Drew Brees on the road at Tennessee today. He's coming off of 2 monster weeks, Fensty. And then Russell Wilson, arguably the best matchup of the day at home against the Arizona Cardinals. I don't think in this particular case, I know how good Drew Brees has been, Fensty, but Russell Wilson's not going to lay an egg today. Like Jacob Hollister
is Arizona, Ben. It's Arizona.
Jacob Hollister is a guaranteed touchdown. Arizona's given up 15 touchdowns, basically 1 per game to the tight end spot. So automatically pencil in 6 for Russell Wilson and then add up some yards along the way. Like if Jacob Hollister doesn't pie bet Jacob Hollister catches a touchdown.
I'm not betting against that.
No. You don't have to bet. I'm saying as part of the Fantasy Alarm pie bet challenge.
It has to be a wide receiver, Ben.
I'm voluntarily offering up to pie myself in the face if Jacob Hollister doesn't catch a touchdown.
Wow.
That's what I'm doing for this show. If Jacob Hollister does not catch a touchdown today, I will pie myself in the face. Now,
side pie action.
Now, the caveat is that I need your guy, Howard Bender, to retweet this when I post it later on today. If you're listening, retweet this, and I will pie myself in the face on behalf of the Fantasy Alarm, #FFPieBet.
Then you're going for an official submission.
Yes.
You can #FFPieBet, but you must tag @Fantasy Alarm.
I will. I have been.
Guy. So... And also to all of you out there, again, it's a great thing that we're doing at fantasyalarm.com, donating $10 per pie in the face to the Children's Fund. Here's the game very quickly. You're playing against the 4 of us on the show, Howard Bender, Jim Bowden, myself, Ani Sridhar, one of our other producers. We've had our wide receiver draft. If your wide receiver in full point PPR beats any of the ones we picked, and the guys that were picked were DeAndre Hopkins, who did not do well, and also, you know what, Ben? I think it's actually kind of done because the slate's already begun. So now a lot of people are spectating. But side pie action, Ben, that's a whole different story.
That's all I was trying to do. I was just trying to get a little side pie.
I was trying to promote.
My wife is in the other room. She's like, "You're trying to get side pie?" How do you know? It's okay. We're talking about fantasy. It's just okay, all good.
What? Oh, come on. You know the wife would love to pie you in the face, Ben. Who would want to pie you?
She probably would love to pie me in the face.
Yes.
Okay.
Lock that in.
All right. So are you giving me the blessing here? I can do a little side pie action. Jacob Hollister has to catch a touchdown.
You've put it on the record already.
Okay. So this isn't he has to outdo DeAndre Hopkins. I'm saying if Jacob Hollister doesn't catch a touchdown today, I will pie myself in the face.
Done.
Okay. All right. Very good.
Done.
That answers your question. Russell Wilson. Jacob Hollister touchdown. Holy shit, he better catch a touchdown. Miller Lite Coin on Periscope checks in. He says, hope you made it to the championship game. Thanks for jumping on for the final week. Half point PPR, do I roll with David Montgomery or our guy, Mike Boone? So we'll start with that, and then he has a wide receiver question as well. And again, if you guys have sent in questions, I see C-Chav, Casey Chief Keef, Kevin O checks in as well. We got some Twitter questions we'll get to. All of your questions right here on the live show, we will make sure we answer on the championship week edition of Wake and Rake. So let's start with this question from Miller Lite Coin at the running back spot. The matchup for David Montgomery, Fensty, is fantastic. Chiefs defense has been awful all year against the running back position. They've been better as of late, and their defense actually over the last 3 weeks has been really, really good. But you would think that a forward-minded head coach like Matt Nagy would use somebody like David Montgomery to be able to have an advantage. And Fensty, the reality as a Bears fan all year is that Matt Nagy is a smart guy, but he outsmarts himself. And that's been one of the biggest issues of the entire season is he doesn't go with the strengths of his players. He says, no, this is going to be my system, my offensive game plan, and this is what it's going to take to win. And he doesn't allow Mitch to run. He doesn't allow Mitch to roll out, move the pocket behind a bad offensive line to help stabilize them. And they don't run the damn ball enough with Montgomery, who's a good player. And if they move things around, if they used him to set up play action, it would make his life so much easier. It would help against the Chiefs, and I just don't trust him to do it. So I got to go Mike Boone here.
I got to as well. Again, I thought David Montgomery was in such a smash spot last week. That's what happens with David Montgomery. Man, when you think about disappointments when it comes to draft value, people were on David Montgomery, Ben, in the late third, early fourth round. I was seeing him in some weeks.
But the thing is, Fensty, yes, he was a disappointment, but think about some of the other running back disappointments that we've had this year. Right. David Johnson, Alvin Kamara. What a disaster both of those guys have been. And Alvin Kamara has missed a couple of weeks, but he's played mostly throughout the season and just never got himself going.
Do you view injuries when you look at a player's season and they were hurt for a decent amount of the year? Does that count against them as a disappointing season? Or even an injury that was for the entire season. Let's say someone's out the entire year. Does that count as a disappointing season?
Not if they haven't been injury prone in the past.
Okay.
If this is the first time and it just happened. I remember Jamal Charles had a couple really bad season-ending injuries, and other than that, he was always producing. So you knew that was a risk associated with taking him. If Ezekiel Elliott missed 10, 11 weeks with an injury, I'd be like, Zeke plays all the time. You can't put this on him. But if it's a guy like David Johnson has missed a lot of time with injury, but if David Johnson was having a good year and then he got hurt, you got to be that's the risk associated with David Johnson. So I think it's dependent on the player.
Right. Who the hell is David Johnson, by the way?
The starting running back for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in 2020.
Dude, he's made Kenyon Drake look like an all-star.
It's amazing. But honestly, don't you think that'd be such a good fit for him? Because clearly they still don't trust Ronald Jones enough. You move David Johnson there. You can still incorporate Ronald Jones into the mix and have him be sort of the slasher, harder running back, and then still use David Johnson as a pass-catching running back and really open up that offense. Imagine having Godwin and David Johnson in the slot next year.
That would be awesome, and then we can
watch. That's sports horny right there.
It is, but then we can watch Jameis Winston throw 5 picks a game when he's throwing dump off passes. So that'll also be fun as well.
Listen, anybody that I know Jameis was coming off of back-to-back 450-plus yard games, but at some point, with no Evans, with no Godwin, that was going to come back and bite him. And I wasn't going to trust my championship to Jameis Winston. I just could not do it. I know Texans have given up a bunch of points, and I know that game was tied, but no. Not going to happen.
Ben, he had guys open all day. He was overthrowing them. He overthrew Perriman, overthrew Watson consecutive plays in the end zone.
But Jameis does that, which is why I didn't trust him.
Yeah, it's so hard, but I will never have him as my starting quarterback ever.
No,
ever.
Week one against the 49ers. Still get mad about that. I would have won a lot of money without Jameis Winston. Anyway, that's beside the point. So we're going with Mike Boone, Miller Lite Coin. Also, do I put in Mike Williams over Michael Gallup with Dak's shoulder issues? Well, if there's one guy that Fensty loves today, Mike Williams is that play going up against the Raiders. Now, Michael Gallup, too, Fensty, has a fantastic matchup against the Eagles, but Dak Prescott's shoulder concerns are a concern, especially for Gallup, who's a deep play threat. Mike Williams is finally on the right side of touchdown regression with back-to-back touchdowns in his last 2 games. I think he's the play today against the Chargers. I like him quite a bit.
So do I, and this is a situation where I just think the ceiling is higher. Again, the Raiders' defense is just terrible.
They're awful.
So with that, it's I'm thinking I don't want to go this far, Ben, and say, hey, stack the Chargers. But as we're talking, I'm getting very close to wanting to put in a lineup where I have Phillip Rivers, Mike Williams, and probably Austin Eckler in there as well.
Right. Now the question is, would you run it back with the Raider? Run it back with like DeAndre Washington, maybe?
Maybe. I mean, again, it's like
Tyrell revenge game for Tyrell Williams.
See, no, here's the problem. So here's the thing with Tyrell Williams.
Darren Waller.
Is my thing all right, here's the problem with Tyrell Williams, and we talked about this last week. I know he scored a touchdown, easy touchdown for him to score on. He's got an Achilles injury, Ben. He can't run the same. I'm telling you, he can't. I can't put trust in that. I know he scored on busted coverage last week. I know that. But at the same time, I'm still not putting the trust into that.
But maybe you can run it back with Waller, who's always been remarkably consistent throughout the year. By the way, if you're talking about value, Darren Waller might have been the best value play of the entire season.
No, for sure. For sure. I mean, you were getting him the tail end of your drafts?
If
you
that.
Waited on tight end. Boom. I mean, so for all of you that were drafting O.J. Howard in the 4th and 5th round, you get a guy like Darren Waller about 9 rounds later. Come on, man.
And by the way, O.J. Howard had a chance yesterday to change the narrative about his season. If O.J. Howard would have balled out in Week 16 in the championship week and saved a lot of people's fantasy season, everybody would be changing their tone about O.J. Howard throughout the course of the season.
Oh, he had a career. He won me my championship.
Yeah, what would I have done without O.J. Howard? Yeah, really just ugh.
That's how it is, Ben. That's how it is
him.
with the new generation. All it takes is a championship week victory, and all is forgotten about.
Absolutely, and that's how it gets done. Maybe Justin Watson ends up winning that championship for me this week. You never know.
Yeah.
From Casey Chief Keef, is Kirk Cousins a safe enough play to start over guys available in most leagues like Dwayne Haskins and Drew Lock? Well, if we're talking about ideal matchups, Fensty, Drew Lock today at home against the Lions is about as good of a matchup as you're going to get. However, Cousins has had a very up and down season, even though his numbers all throughout have been pretty exceptional. If you look at the total touchdowns, 29 touchdowns on the year, 5 interceptions, so he really hasn't turned the ball over that much. But he's just not throwing a lot. Like, back to 3 consecutive games under 300 yards. He hasn't thrown for more than 38 times over the course of a season. I just wonder, in this game against Green Bay, when you know you can exploit the Packers on the ground, would you rather go with somebody like Kirk Cousins or say, you know what, Drew Lock has looked pretty good with the exception of the snow game at Kansas City, and he gets the Lions at home. Maybe we run with Drew Lock today.
I'm still going Cousins, Ben. Championship week, again, with Drew Lock. I mean, again, for DFS, I'd rather go with him in that direction and season long. I got to stick with Kirk Cousins here.
I think it's probably the better play, too. And again, Green Bay has also shown a propensity to give up some deep passes as well. You have Thielen back. You have Stephon Diggs. Kyle Rudolph and Irv Smith have been catching red zone passes as well. So I think Kirk Cousins still probably the play. But Drew Lock was actually a guy that I picked up just as a backup option this week, and also to make sure that whoever I was playing didn't get a chance to use him. And they have to figure out somebody else at the quarterback spot. So, Casey Chief Keef, I think we're both going to go with Kirk Cousins here and hope that it's not an entirely Mike Boone-dominated game. Well, I mean, I do because I picked him up everywhere. But for your sake, I hope Cousins throws for a couple touchdowns as well. From C. Chav, he checks in on YouTube Live. Fensty, he needs one flex play in PPR between Ward with the Philadelphia Eagles, Danny Amendola, who's on the road against the Denver Broncos today, had a big game last week, and DeAndre Washington. Washington, of course, going up against the Chargers in a flex PPR. So normally, if it was a standard league or even half-point PPR, Fensty, I think DeAndre Washington would be the play here. If it's PPR, I think Ward and Amendola all of a sudden start to become a full part of the conversation.
I do too. I'm still going Washington, though. I feel it's the safest play.
For sure the safest play. But Amendola had a really good game last week. Ward was targeted a ton for the Eagles. And I just don't know who else they have at this point at the wide receiver spot.
I mean, when it comes to the Eagles, I'll tell you this. I had a note on Aguilar. Aguilar not expected to play. Arcega-Whiteside, though, actually should be back in this game. We'll have to see, the official inactives and everything, but that's how it's looking right now. And Jordan, for those that are keeping score as well, Jordan Howard is questionable. So let's just say Jordan Howard plays, then Miles Sanders all of a sudden becomes, I think, more of a receiver type running back than more focused on the carries.
What are you hearing about Jordan Howard? Because whatever I just read was that he was going to be out for today.
Right. The last I saw that he was still questionable.
Okay. Let's see. Is this no, this is from previous.
Okay, Mortensen recently said in the last hour that he's not going to play.
Okay. So I'm going under the assumption that Jordan Howard is once again out for today. Washington, C-Chav probably the safest of all those plays. Some more questions coming in. Another from Casey Chief Keef. Have a bunch of mid-tier guys. Can you rank them in a half-point PPR? Tyler Boyd, A.J. Brown, Jarvis Landry. So let's start with those three because he's got a couple others as well. This week I'd probably go Tyler Boyd. I'd probably go in that order. If it's half-point PPR, I don't love Landry this week. I think he's a decent play. A.J. Brown has a really tough matchup, but he's such a big play threat and likely being shadowed by Marshawn Lattimore. I'd probably go Boyd, Brown, and Landry this week. I just don't.
I would too.
Maybe I put Landry ahead of Brown.
Right. I don't know, Ben, if this is going to impact him as much today, but I am reading articles that Landry could be looking at off-season surgery, which screams to me damaged goods.
Okay. So you want to keep that order then? Boyd, A.J. Brown, Jarvis Landry?
We'll keep that order. Again, I don't love putting my faith into the Bengals outside of Joe Mixon as of late, but at the same time, we have to look at the matchup here, and it's Miami. Right. So it's, again, you're not going to get too many better matchups.
Exactly. And Boyd has seen a ton of volume this year. Like, he's been one of the high floor plays of the entire season, really. He also has Adam Thielen and DK Metcalf for this week. So I'd probably rank them Tyler Boyd, Adam Thielen, DK Metcalf, A.J. Brown, Jarvis Landry. Now, Metcalf is very much bust or boom, but you're not going to get a better matchup than this week.
Mm-mm.
So I think you have to take.
So it's man. I almost want to give what's his face the bump because of that Metcalf the bump a little bit because I love that matchup so much.
Yeah, and I also wonder too if he might be a little bit lesser owned than Tyler Lockett today, and that's another way to get a little bit of leverage in daily.
Right, and especially in daily. I mean,
Hollister's going to be owned everywhere.
Today. And that's the problem. I think that there are going to be too many Seattle sacks.
Yeah, but okay. So then if you go Kyler Murray, Kenyon Drake, and Christian Kirk, run it back with one of those guys, run it back with DK Metcalf, then I think you're looking at sub 10% ownership.
Right.
For whatever that's worth. Tournaments.
That's being different.
One more from Casey Chief Keef. Start 3. Oh, God, there's so many names here.
How many teams does he have?
I don't know, but we've been saving you, Chief Keef, all season long. Start 3.
Good for him.
Out of Nick Chubb, Aaron Jones, Austin Eckler, DeAndre Washington, and Joe Mixon in a half-point PPR. These are all good options.
Right. I've got one that we're taking out.
I assume you're taking out
DeAndre Washington.
Okay, from that. So one got to go between Chubb, Aaron Jones, Eckler, and Joe Mixon in a half-point PPR.
Man, I mean, do we take out Eckler in that situation? I don't want to, but I feel like that's the answer.
Taking him out would be the smarter decision. But again, like Narrative Street, I think they're going to feature him today. Like, there's no reason.
Right.
There's no reason for them to continue to run Melvin Gordon into the ground. Like, I think they want to be able to hype up Eckler a little bit. But
but he's still there, Ben.
And he's just not going to get the same amount of volume, and it's not full point PPR. I think you have to take out Washington and Eckler. Mixon is getting too much volume. Same with Jones and Chubb. Mm-hmm. Oh, I hate to do it, but I think that's the play. From
It's
Kevin,
a good situation to be in.
From Kevin O. T.Y. Hilton or Dion Lewis for the flex in a half-point PPR. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to you, Kevin. I am going in this matchup with T.Y. Hilton because I think that he's finally back healthy. The Colts have a great matchup against Carolina today. Hilton was targeted, I believe, 9 times in the game last week. Didn't really get it going. I think he does today. Again, Dion Lewis, tough matchup against the Saints, even though he's at home. Maybe a little bit safer, maybe a higher floor Fensty, but I think T.Y. Hilton is the better play between the two.
The fear of the unknown gets me with Dion Lewis a little bit in a matchup like this, so I'm going to also go with T.Y. Hilton.
From James checking in on YouTube Live, Matt Ryan at home against Jacksonville or Ryan Tannehill in the championship today. Where do you go?
Man, between the two, I really want to go. I really want to go Ryan Tannehill here.
I really in your do. Battle
Again,
between the Ryans.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, man, this is very tough. I got Tannehill going off a little bit more than Matty Ice today, Ben. I don't know if you think differently, but again, outside of that one Lattimore matchup that we continue to talk about, I mean, he's going to have the rest of the field to deal with. Pass catching back at Dion Lewis. I mean. Again, I would stick with Tannehill here.
From a yardage perspective and an attempts perspective, Tannehill should do it more than Ryan. But it's a great matchup for Ryan, too. I just wonder whether or not the Falcons are just going to run all over them, and that just sort of takes away opportunities for Matty Ice. Like, I'm debating in one league between Dak and Matt Ryan for a championship today.
Wow.
And right now, I currently have Ryan in, even though it's not as high of an upside as a matchup as it is for Dak, but I just know that Ryan's going to be able to get the ball where he needs to, and I think there's value in that. So, that's really tough. I feel like the safer play for sure is Ryan. Like, we can agree on that, right?
Yep.
But if you're looking for volume, if you're looking for consistency. Man, that is a tough decision. I think I'm still going to lean Matt Ryan here.
Okay.
That's what my gut is telling me. That's what I think a lot of the numbers are saying as well. High floor, Jacksonville defense. I don't think they can be necessarily that inspired because Tom Coughlin has left the building. Like, at some point, talent wins out.
Right.
So I'm going with Matt Ryan here.
That is a very tough decision.
No. So I probably got to make sure that lineup is set with Matty Ice over Dak today too. From Sean, do I stick with Kyler Murray this week or stream somebody like Gardner Minshew at Atlanta or Ryan Fitzpatrick against the Bengals? I would say you stick with Kyler Murray this week. I think Kyler Murray's matchup is terrific.
I like the thought process, but yes, this is again good matchup all around for both teams. Stick with Kyler Murray.
I would agree. Someone checks in, who do I start in a full point PPR? Adrian Peterson, Boston Scott, James Conner, or DeAndre Washington. So full point PPR, Adrian Peterson, it's a good matchup, Fensty. He's just not going to catch any passes, but he'll get plenty of volume. So that's just sort of like, he's a good running back play, regardless of full point PPR. Boston Scott has gotten some volume in the passing game, but I think you probably take him out of that equation. James Conner, tough matchup against the Jets on the road. I'm trying to remember what his usage was last week. Did he end up getting, consistent volume, or did they rotate guys in? He only played 34 out of 59 snaps, only had 8 rushing attempts, but he also caught 4 passes for 9 yards and a touchdown. And then there's, of course, DeAndre Washington for the Raiders. I think Washington's probably the play if you're looking for PPR, or do you say, no, it's Adrian Peterson against the Giants?
You know what? When it comes down between the two of them, and that's who I was actually thinking about, those two, I'm actually going to stick with DeAndre Washington here.
All right, I think I am.
As much as I like the matchup for AP, I get it. I do like DeAndre Washington a little bit better, though, between the two.
All right, so right now, those are the questions that we've gotten on the live stream. Let's go to some of your guys' questions from Twitter this week. This is from Ernesto. Do I go with Austin Eckler, Mike Boone, or Aaron Jones today? It does not specify whether or not it is PPR or not.
Right. I think you're going Aaron Jones in this matchup.
Yeah, I think so too, just based on the volume and consistency all season long. Yep. Aaron Jones is probably the play. But again, both of those other options, Fensty, are legit candidates to be able to consider for today.
Right. It's very true. Again, I have Jones, probably Boone second there, and then Eckler third.
From Josh Chisvin on Twitter. There's like a V and an S in sort of a strange place, so I apologize. Do I go with, it's a desperation wide receiver 4, he says, as a caveat. Do I go with Sims Jr. for Washington or Russell Gage for the Falcons?
Interesting. Man, you must be very desperate. There's no one else out there?
Kind of sounds like our league where you got like too many guys trying to play. So Sims for Washington has actually seen a decent amount of volume on the other side of Terry McLaurin. Last week was targeted 11 times, had 5 catches, 45 yards, and a touchdown. He's certainly in play against a terrible Giants team. And then Russell Gage in a Falcons offense that continues to take shots downfield. Probably Sims is the safest play of all of those guys, and then Gage is maybe the higher upside play.
Yes, I mean, look, if you look at the targets overall over the last few weeks for Gage, I mean, you know me, my barometer is 6, and he has done that in 3 of his last 4 matchups. However, again, looking to see how bare-boned Washington is. I mean, we're talking about Adrian Peterson. I mean, outside of him and McLaurin, again, the Giants are just so pathetic.
Yeah.
I think you're going to have to do Sims here.
I think so, too. Sims is probably the play that I would suggest as well. And again, I think it's a little bit safer as well. From Big Lance on Twitter, who should I start between Ryan Tannehill or Aaron Rodgers today? So Aaron Rodgers has the Monday night game on the road against Minnesota. Ryan Tannehill, of course, a high upside play for the Titans today against New Orleans, but it is a tough matchup. He also could pick up somebody like Andy Dalton off the waiver wire today against Miami. So Tannehill, Rodgers, or Andy Dalton, Fensty?
I'm going to have to go with Tannehill once again. Again, he'll have most of that field. I know he's gotten to A.J. Brown, and I know it's a tough matchup. But, again, I just feel, man, with Aaron Rodgers, what a year it's been for Aaron Rodgers, huh? It's been hard for me to figure out Green Bay's offense between Aaron Rodgers and his receivers all year long.
Nobody can figure it out. Nobody really has much of a clue, to be perfectly honest. And anyone who says they do is lying.
You can't, again, I don't know what to expect, and because of that, I have to go with Tannehill over Rodgers here.
Okay, so Tannehill is the play. From Warren checking in on Twitter, Dion Lewis, Mike Boone, or DeAndre Washington, Fensty? Who do you go with?
Mike Boone.
I think so too. And again, they don't specify whether it is standard or PPR. One more from Sean checking in on YouTube Live. Standard scoring, we have to start 2 of these guys between T.Y. Hilton, DJ Moore, A.J. Brown, and Darius Slayton. So T.Y. Hilton at home against Carolina. DJ Moore, I'm actually trying to remember. Carolina is on the road against the Colts. So T.Y. Hilton against Carolina, DJ Moore on the road against the Colts, A.J. Brown at home against the Saints, and Darius Slayton on the road against Washington. So we have to start 2, Fensty and standard. We're looking at touchdown.
So let me ask you this, Ben.
Yeah, we're looking at touchdown equity.
We haven't talked about this yet. Will Grier, now starting, how much does that take away from Moore and Samuel's value, in your opinion?
I think it increases Samuel's value because this guy's got a cannon, and it's finally going to start to let Samuel take some more shots downfield. Kyle Allen was just dumping it off everywhere, and frankly, it concerns me a little bit because considering I have Christian McCaffrey in a million different places, is Will Grier not going to be the same check down option for McCaffrey? Like McCaffrey's still going to probably go over 100 yards from scrimmage today. It's just I don't know whether he's going to catch 10, 11, 12 balls as well because Kyle Allen isn't the quarterback anymore.
Right. Like, I'll be honest with you, Ben. I mean, even though the Lattimore matchup scares me, can you really go off of A.J. Brown at this point? Because, again, I love Darius Slayton, and I love that Daniel Jones is back for Darius Slayton. I love that very, very much. And there's a big part of me that wants to tell Sean, start Hilton and Slayton here. But am I overthinking it with the matchup with A.J. Brown? That's the big question.
I don't think you're overthinking it. The other thing, too, is that DJ Moore has just seen so much volume. So much volume. Now, again, quarterback change can really throw things up. I feel like DJ Moore was one of the guys that I'm starting with. And again, it's a standard league, but he's also gotten to the end zone as well. I think I'm probably going with the two best players in T.Y. Hilton and DJ Moore, even though Brown and Slayton could also be touchdown equity guys. But I think Hilton and Moore are perfectly capable of scoring.
Right. I like that too.
So
even though new quarterback, again, you know the risk you're taking with the new quarterback. However, if the targets are there, not a lot of other options, that supersedes all.
From Andrew on Twitter, should I start Dak or Ryan Tannehill? Again, these are a lot of Tannehill questions coming in, Fensty, and rightfully so. He's helped in the second half of the season, but championship week, really tough matchup against the Saints. Do you trust his matchup more than Dak's matchup? Probably not, but we just don't know if we trust Dak's health.
We've covered this already. Again, it depends. This is one of those situations where it depends what type of player you are. You want the safety net, you could go Dak, but know that who has a bigger ceiling to get more points. I really do feel that if they go up against the Eagles, they go up 2 touchdowns, it's going to be full cruise control with Zeke the rest of the game. I'm telling you, I really do feel that way. So, again, if you're chasing the points here, I feel like you have to go Tannehill.
I think so, too. All right, Fensty, looks like the questions are done for championship week. We got about 5 minutes left. So let's go through the slate. Let's start going through a couple of our favorite plays, starting at the quarterback spot. I think without question, even though he's 8K on DraftKings, are you still starting your builds around Lamar Jackson, or are you looking for value at the quarterback position today?
I'm looking at, we have other options that have great matchups here. I'm probably looking in this neighborhood at the Breeze Michael Thomas stack once again.
Okay. Going up against Tennessee, I
know it's a bit chalky, but everybody has Lamar Jackson fever, and Russell Wilson will be very popular as well. I feel like with Breeze in tournaments, I'll get a little bit less ownership. However, normally if people are playing Michael Thomas, again, you want to double down. You stack him with Breeze. That's what I normally do in my lineups. With my quarterback, I have at least one of his receivers, and who better than Michael Thomas?
No, Michael Thomas has been the fantasy wide receiver MVP today. I even think as good of a matchup as Russell Wilson has, I still think the floor of Lamar Jackson is worth the 8K. I would understand people spending at that spot. I think Kyler Murray might go under owned today because everyone's going to want to be on the Seattle side. I think that's a great leverage play. And then, like you said before, I think a Charger stack is in play considering how inconsistent Phillip Rivers has been. At this point, the Raiders don't really have much to play for anymore. They got booed off their own field in the final game in the Oakland Coliseum. So I think Rivers, Mike Williams, maybe being able to
sneaky stack,
right?
Ben.
Throw that in with throw that in with Austin Eckler, maybe Darren Waller on the other side. If you think there's going to be points scored on both sides, I think Phillip Rivers could be a really interesting play, and he's only 5,700 today on DraftKings. If you're looking for pure value, Will Grier, $4,300. Over on DraftKings today, that would allow you to be able to spend up, and you could pair him with Christian McCaffrey, which again.
What about Ben? What about Drew Lock and Courtland Sutton today?
I like the play quite a bit. I also think that'll be a pretty popular cash game play. Who would you rather play between Drew Lock at 5,600 and Andy Dalton at 5,200 against Miami?
Man, I
think I'd go Andy Dalton because I know he's going to throw, and I know that Mixon is involved, but. Like Miami, it's just they're so bad in their corner play that I think Dalton could throw for a couple touchdowns today fairly easily.
Yeah, I like Dalton and Boyd naturally over Dalton and Ross. Normally, I would like to go with the value receiver to be very, very different. However, if I'm starting Andy Dalton, I need his top guy.
Absolutely, and Tyler Boyd remains that top guy, unless you want to do something with Dalton and Mixon. Because Joe Mixon.
Okay, you know what, Ben? You know what? Today's the day to do it.
Listen, if there's a matchup that would exist, that would work.
Okay, so Ben, I'm going to ask you about this question now. Pick your stack? Rivers, Eckler, Mike Williams, Dalton, Mixon, Boyd.
Rivers, Eckler, and Mike Williams. Just because I know that Eckler's going to get a bunch of targets in the passing game today. And I think it'll be lesser owned, to be perfectly honest.
Right.
No. Chargers.
Man, Phillip Rivers is like that value quarterback. He's always been that last resort quarterback if you're ultimately waiting. However, this year it's been a very shaky season for him.
Yeah. I'd be as surprised as anybody if the Raiders just all of a sudden put up a strong defensive effort this week and just come back. And Rivers sort of knows he's getting close to the end, but he still wants to sling it around. I would be very surprised if the Raiders defense shuts him down. I know it's possible, but I'm not banking on it. At the running back spot, Fensty, we have certainly Christian McCaffrey, who's always in play, just over 10K. Carolina on the road against Indianapolis today. He's on the fast track. You have somebody like Chris Carson, who's all the way up to $8,500, but it's such a good matchup for him against Arizona. I think is a little bit too high priced for my blood. Probably the best value right now on the slate is somebody like DeAndre Washington, who, if I look at his price point, is, let's see, 4K. So he's almost a must start at that point. Dion Lewis, we talked about him, 4,300, but Joe Mixon, Fensty, at just around 6,600, with the type of volume that he's been getting in Cincinnati right now, you kind of feel like he's the cash game lock today.
Right. By the way, it's funny you were mentioning, which, by the way, I think you're right. That is a great value with Joe Mixon. It's very interesting because, Ben, you were talking about how at the beginning of the show, there are all these backup running backs. What about a return of a starting running back in Kerryon Johnson?
Oh, I can't do it.
I can't do it either, but I find it interesting that on one hand, you have the Lions coaching staff saying they want to be smart with how they use him. And then I see other reports out there that it could be a 50-50 carry split between him and Scarborough, who's not 100%.
Right. I think it makes more sense as sort of an absolute like desperation play in daily, or not in daily, but in your season-long league. He's 4,900 on DraftKings, and for a guy that's scheduled to split the carries on the road at Denver, that game script is not likely going to depend on running backs. I'll probably pass, to be perfectly honest.
Right. I got another question for you, Ben, and this is just a hunch I have. Now, I'm in a league in full point PPR, and maybe you can talk me out of this. I'm starting. So Marlon Mack did absolutely nothing last week. However, this week he has a very strong matchup. It's a great matchup. Let me ask you this, though. From watching the game on Monday night, Ben, if you looked at how Marlon Mack was just running up the middle for 1 or 2 yards and that's it, Jordan Wilkins looked like he was able to avoid tackles a lot better than Marlon Mack. If you're in a desperation play for 4,100, would you take a look at him at all?
I mean, Wilkins, especially the last week, like you said, just had a better burst. They targeted him once in the passing game. The Colts haven't given us any indication that Mack is hurt.
Right.
And so
I don't think I have the guts to do this with Wilkins. It's just been when we watch sports for a living. That's what we do. When I see athleticism and I see one guy running 2 yards and getting tackled, and then another guy who, even though he was only given a few carries, he was still able to use his strength to get a few more yards in that regard. Why not? I mean, again, a few weeks ago, you go back to week 13. I mean, Mac's been in and out of the lineup. I don't want to convince myself, but again, the one thing with Marlon Mack, I can't get that bad taste out of my mouth from last week, Ben. I know he has a strong matchup.
What do you think?
Talk me off.
What do you think Marlon Mack's ownership will be today? Knowing how bad Carolina, yes. Do you think above? If I set the total at, like, let's say you made a Millie Maker lineup, over under 15% ownership for Marlon Mack today against Carolina at 6,200.
Yeah, he'll be right around that point.
Okay,
yeah, he'll be right around that point.
So at that point, it's not necessarily much of.
I'm going because, again, people are viewing this in DFS as well as not just another week. It's like, oh, we're in the last few weeks now. I can't see Marlon Mack being in a lot of those lineups.
That's fair. That's fair, especially with the value that you have at running back. But the matchup is so good. I feel like I need to have one lineup with him in it today, just to say, all right, I had the exposure there. At the wide receiver spot, Fensty, when we're talking about particular value plays, Larry Fitzgerald, assuming we're not sure what happens with Christian Kirk, he should be able to go. But Fitz is only 4,200, and he's going to see a bunch of volume. Greg Ward had a nice display game for Philadelphia last week. He's only 4,200. Chris Conley, who caught 2 touchdown passes last week, is 4,300 for Jacksonville.
Yep.
We talked.
Mike Williams is 5,000. And here's one, Ben. What about someone from the Steelers receivers? What about a Deontay Johnson at 4,700? Against the Jets.
Against the Jets, it's a good matchup, but it's still Duck throwing him the ball, and I just don't know if I trust him.
Right. Understood.
So
that makes sense.
And then as far as like just top plays, you have like Devontae Parker, Miami going up against Cincinnati, Cortland Sutton, a great play as well. Keenan Allen's price hasn't gone up either. And again, like we talked about Mike Williams, Fensty, but Keenan Allen for 1,300 more, if we're looking at his game log, continues to see a ton of targets. Back-to-back weeks without a touchdown, but he's also gone over 83 yards in both those weeks, playing a bunch of the snaps. So he's also in play as well for Phillip Rivers and company.
Yeah, Terry McLaurin as well.
Oh, great matchup for Terry McLaurin. And then, again, if you want to roll the dice a little bit, DK Metcalf for Seattle going up against Arizona. T.Y. Hilton, because the Colts are going to likely have to get themselves going against Carolina.
Golden Tate definitely in play as well.
Yes, absolutely. And then finally at the tight end spot, Fensty, as we wrap things up in the final show of the year, Zach Ertz. Great matchup for Philadelphia against Dallas. You know that he's been targeted a ton in the passing game. We talked about Darren Waller as an opportunity to run it back if you're just going to stack the Chargers today. And then the debate we had between Austin Hooper and Hunter Henry, we both went with Hooper. But any other value tight ends that you might have some intrigue for today?
I mean, the Eagles are playing Dallas. Why not start a dude named Dallas against them? Dallas Goedert as well. It can't be all Ertz all the time. For 4,100, that's a dart throw, Ben.
It's a dart throw, but he's had no less than 6 targets in his last 5 games for Dallas Goedert. Now, Ertz has been the red zone option, and before it used to be Goddard. But he's certainly in play. And let's not forget, Fensty, my pie bet candidate, Jacob Hollister for Seattle, needs to get in the end zone against Arizona. The Cardinals, that's what they do. They give up touchdowns to tight ends. So everyone's going to be playing Hollister. They're going to get the value there. But I mean, you can make a legitimate argument that Goddard at 4,100 is a far better pivot on Hollister at 4,200 if you want to play for a guy that might be seeing a little bit more volume outside of the red zone. But I do like Jacob Hollister quite a bit.
No, absolutely.
Fensty.
Yep.
Now that we've come to the end of the road, this is it.
This is it.
This is the show. What a time. So first of all, like I said before, it has been awesome to see the success that you've achieved over at SiriusXM this year. Fantasy Alarm, teaming up, and finally you getting recognized for the outstanding work that you've been doing for a long, long time. Thank you again. This has been our 2nd season doing the live show, 5th year working together on Sundays, and a long-time friendship. So congratulations on all your success, brother. Thank you for being a part of the show once again.
And Ben, let me just tell you, man, you're one of the biggest fighters. I'm not just saying this, and I've told you this before on and off the air. You're not only one of the biggest fighters that I know in this industry, and any company would be lucky to have you for not only your skills with what you do on the air, but all that you do technical wise as well. These shows require a lot of work, and Ben does a lot of that grunt work for it. So with you, Ben, I thank you as well, and just want to say I always appreciated it. But also I'll say this, because sometimes a lot of people are out for themselves in life. Ben Heisler has been one of the best friends that I have had in this industry and outside of this industry. And Ben, it's been awesome just getting to hang with you every single week, because that's what Wake and Rake is all about. We're friends. We're your friends out there. And just, Ben, thank you for being such a great friend and all of your support that you've given me, man. And I think when it comes to your future, again, this guy is the #1 free agent on the market right now. This guy's your must play. This guy's the guy you want in every single one of your damn lineups, whether it's in fantasy or whether it's being a good friend. Ben Heisler, in the words of, I guess, Charles Barkley from 10 years ago, you're in my fave 5.
Gotta love you, buddy. This has been a lot of fun. Thanks to all of you guys for watching, for listening, for being a part of the show. Each and every week, we know who you are, and we thank you for the time. So good luck today. Go get that championship. Tweet us your winning score afterwards, and we'll retweet it out, letting us know that because you were hanging out with us, hopefully we were able to give you some sort of an edge today in your fantasy league, whether it be for daily or for season long. So, for my guy, Fensty, I am Ben. Thank you guys for being a part of the show. We will talk to you very soon. Next season, always around the corner. Good luck, everybody. Be good.
Dominate.